Hello everyone, good afternoon. This is Intro to Chimney Inspections. My name is Cody Whitwood. Let's see here. A little bit about me. I am from Wichita Falls, Texas, which is just about a couple hours from here if you guys don't know where it is. I am a CSIA certified chimney sweep. I lead the inspection team at Caesar Chimney Services in Manchester, New Hampshire. I am one of 530 master certified chimney sweeps in the whole country. CSIA instructor and the former chair of the CSIA Education and Training Committee, which means that I know very little about inspecting homes, but I know a whole lot about inspecting chimneys. So, a little bit about the CSIA. The Chimney Safety Institute of America is a nonprofit organization governed by a volunteer board of directors dedicated to the education, training, and certification of chimney and industry-related professionals. So by extension, you guys are industry-related. Additionally, we strive to advance public awareness about the dangers of chimney fires and other problems related to the maintenance and performance of chimney and venting systems. Our mission is to provide the highest standard of education and resources to advance the knowledge of industry professionals for the benefit of the public. Advancing professional education, research, advocacy, and safety to all communities now and in the future. Our core values are that we are fiercely dedicated to both the skill set and the craft. We are forever evolving, meaning that we're always leaning forward into the problem. And we are industry leading, meaning we want to be on the cutting edge of everything that comes out of this industry. This is our current certification center in Plainfield, Indiana. This is our National Training Academy that's inside of there. This is the classroom setting. We also have a general certification center just down the street from it. This is what we call our prior structure. A little bit about the prior structure is this was designed by a gentleman by the name of Chris Pryor, and the CSIA went to him and said, "Hey Chris, this is gonna sound really weird. Can you design the worst chimney ever?" And he said, "I got it." So the whole idea is that with the worst chimney ever, we're gonna get folks in front of it, and then we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna teach you how to inspect this, and then we're gonna let you loose on it, and you're gonna find everything. Interesting story, we've had 2 out of the thousands of people that have gone into it. They both found the same thing, but it's not something that Chris meant to build into it. So even when you're trying to build it wrong, you build it even more wrong than you meant to build it. We provide real hands-on training. This is a demonstration of an active chimney fire. We wanna get folks used to seeing worst case scenario, best case scenario of every part of a chimney and venting system. Real-world demonstrations. This one is also a chimney fire demonstration. This is going to be of an actual active flue fire, ground level. What we're demonstrating here is how the flue tiles break in a chimney fire to try and demonstrate that and make it real world. When we are looking at it on this scale, it's going to be encapsulated within the chimney, and you can't really see and pay attention to the way that the flue tiles are reacting. We have specialized education. This gentleman's name in the tan ball cap and the bright blue shirt, his name is Jim Brewer. He's teaching a gas certification class. So when we come into it, we don't just say, okay, we're going to teach you chimneys. First we teach you chimneys, and it goes everything basic from this is a hammer, this is a screwdriver, all the way up through how to build, maintain, and inspect the chimney itself. Jim will then lead a class on how to teach gas specialization. We have pellet specialization, we have wood burning specialization. And then we get into other venting appliances like boilers, furnaces, water heaters, things like that. In 2026, we will be opening the doors to our brand new headquarters, taking place to the old one. I told them that it should be the Cody Whitwood Center for Chimney Education. They didn't like that. So a little bit about chimney sweeps. When most people think of a chimney sweep, this is what they have in their mind. Not to kind of date myself, but most people think Bert the chimney sweep. Say what? He doesn't look fake? Dick Van Dyke. Yeah, I know. We couldn't get the licensing agreement to use. I think we could get him to use it one time. So that's what they let us do. So I think he comes up here in a minute. So this is the basic, that black and white, the top hat, the button-down shirt with the broom, when in reality, this is what we look like today. We've got the safety equipment, specialized cleaning tools, specialized inspection tools, and then there's a very long training process to get to that point. We have 3 different certification modules that we go through. Certified Chimney Sweep. This is, we bring you in, we train you. You are now certified to do inspections, make basic repairs, and so on. Once you're in the industry for 3 years holding a certified chimney sweep certification, you then advance to certified chimney specialist. This shows that you've been in the industry for 3 years, you've done continuing education courses, you've gone to other classes, you've traveled to other states, you've learned different things from other people. This is driving yourself through the industry, so that always leaning forward. Finally, the certified chimney sweep master, or certified master chimney sweep. This is for folks that have been at least 9 years. So this is top tier. Once you get to this, they're working on another certification to come after this one, but this is you've put in your 10,000 hours. They say you're a master at all things chimney. Once you get this, it's not a guaranteed. They don't just hand it to you and then give you a little pat on the butt and send you down the road. No, you actually have to work to maintain this. So it's not just a congratulatory, here you go. This is something that we still have to take classes, we still have to earn our CEUs, we still have to pay annual dues, and we still have to take tests to maintain that certification. So let's talk a little bit about what you guys are used to seeing. The perfect home, it's what everybody wants. Generally, when they call you, they're wanting the home to be inspected. This is the home buyer's dream. You get the beautifully manicured lawn, you get the house, you get a real pretty chimney out front, hint, hint. If there's no chimney on the house, tell them to go buy a house with a chimney. And this is what inspectors are looking for. Heating systems, central air conditioning, interior plumbing, electrical, roofing. You guys have to know a whole lot about a whole lot, right? I forgot he did all this, I'm sorry. So these are all the things that you guys are having to look through. We're looking at windows, outlets. I just bought a house a couple years ago, and I sat and I talked with that guy, and I told him I would have lost my mind if I had to inspect all that. So bow down to you guys. Usually, though, the chimney is the very last thing that most people think about, honestly. Chimneys come in all shapes and sizes. We've got masonry chimneys, we have appliance chimneys for boilers, furnaces, and whatnot. We have gas fireplaces, we have unvented gas fireplaces. There's a whole host of different things. And in fact, they all come in different shapes and sizes to the extent that no 2 chimneys are the same. You can have the exact same brick mason build every chimney on a street, and no 2 of them will even have the same measurements at the top. No 2 of them are going to have the entire same flue and venting system, and no 2 of them are going to be servicing the exact same fireplace within them. So the purpose of this class is to help all of us work together to educate homeowners on the importance of chimney inspections and maintenance. Once you know the importance of chimney inspections, what you do is up to you. Referrals, right? Working with chimney companies in your area if you yourself don't want to take it on, something that I really enjoy when I was here in Dallas and now that I'm up in New Hampshire, is at the bottom of the inspection report where it details the line items about chimneys. It's usually in really tiny print, and it says this does not substitute an official inspection by a trained individual. But the pictures will be there, and then they'll give a referral to a chimney company that they work closely with that they trust. Something that you should look for is some kind of a certification. In the industry, we have people that we call bobby brushes. Those are the guys that do it on the weekends, nights, and then whenever it gets cold and people need a chimney sweep. Other than that, they have a regular 9 to 5 that they work the rest of the year. I would definitely say those guys are fine if they have a certification, you know. The other thing is to do it yourself. We actually offer an entire certification course just for home inspectors that we are going through ASHI to provide for you guys. So it's a 1-week course. You come in, we teach you how to inspect chimneys. It adds an additional revenue stream to what you're already doing, and it'll give you a little bit more insight into things like clearance and combustibles and everything else. So, quick pop quiz. How often should a chimney be swept? Does anybody want to answer that? As needed. So, something that I like to tell the homeowners that I work with is if your chimney doesn't have a cap on it, every time it rains, it gets a free chimney sweep. Right? A little soft wash, right? Here's another thing. How often should a chimney be inspected? After a severe weather event, after a chimney fire, before and after a modification to the system or appliance, during the transfer or sale of a home, sale or bequeathment. Grandmama dies and leaves it to the grandson. During the transfer of that property, it should still be inspected. And annually. So every year, regardless of what's going on with that chimney, we need to come in and take a look at it. If they have a chimney inspection and 2 weeks later there's a tornado that takes the top third off of the chimney, it's got to be inspected again. Say what? That is an excellent question. Nobody. Now here's the deal. The insurance company. Nobody, but at the same time, the insurance company. You'll see it come up here in the next few slides. I think it's towards the second hour. The NFPA is the National Fire Protection Association. Yeah, we're under the Code 211. So that is the standard of care that we use for chimneys, fireplaces, solid fuel burning appliances, and other vented appliances. So that tells us how to care for dryers, dryer vents, chimneys, fireplaces, furnace vents, boilers, things like that. Nobody cares about the NFPA 211 and what it has to say about how often they should be cleaned or inspected until there's an accident. And then everyone is working blind, and then they go to the insurance company, and the insurance company says, here's the NFPA 211, you missed like 90% of this stuff. And the guys they hire to throw that book at you know it better than most people in my industry. So, what is the biggest threat to chimneys? It's going to be water. Water is the biggest threat to chimneys. I don't know how many of you guys are based in Texas, but several years ago we had the condos, the apartment complex that collapsed and killed a few people. And the report came out in that. And there was something that we in the industry had been saying for years. And I sent that same verbiage to one of the roofers I was working with, detailing why the chimney was in such disrepair. And the words that I used is that moisture is considered a cancerous element to all masonry products. And that's something that we're taught day one. Learn this, carry it forward. I had sent that, and she called me back. She said, it's the craziest thing. This morning while I was drinking coffee, I was reading a story about the condo that fell, and they used that exact terminology. And I had never heard it before you said it, and then I had read it this morning, and that's so crazy. I was like, absolutely. Water is the absolute worst thing. Every time it rains, every time it snows, sleets, sprinklers spraying on it, water is the absolute biggest killer of all masonry products. But in reality, all of these, earth, air, fire, water is just going to be the absolute worst of them. Everything affects it. The only thing that the homeowner really fears is going to be the fire, right? That's all they care about. I don't want to have a fire in my chimney. I don't want to have a chimney fire. That's all that they freak out about. Because chimney fire are the action words, right? They don't hear about the chimney that collapses into a driveway and crushes a beamer over here in the Bishop Arts District. I was there for that. That was interesting. Customer tried to blame me for it. Chimney fires are the worst nightmare that a homeowner can have. truly, because they hear about a chimney fire, they hear about the loss associated with the chimney fire. I don't know if you guys remember, but in 2020, I think it was the end of June, beginning of July, Rachel Ray, the TV celebrity chef, she lived in Denver, Colorado, had been in the same house for 20 plus years. She had 5 chimneys, had somebody come in every year and sweep it, but never inspect it. She had one of the fireplaces burning one morning for coffee, and then the house burnt down, lost the whole thing. Had never been inspected. There had been a previous chimney fire, caused a crack in a flue tile. That allowed what the firefighters call extension to the rest of the house, and it was a complete loss. They hear those horror stories, and that's all that they think about. They don't think about all the other associated damage. 14,000 chimney fires reported in the nation every year. That constitutes roughly 3% of the chimney fires that happen. 97% of chimney fires last between 3 and 15 seconds. Once the fuel burns up, it's gone. You hear a bit of a whoosh, like a train flying past you. The fire in the fireplace gets real big for a few seconds and then quiets back down. You get the flames, sparks, smoke, everything thrown out the top of the chimney, and then it's gone. By the time somebody sees it, it's dead. So they'll run up, hey, I think you had a chimney fire. Guy runs out, looks at it, says, no, it looks fine. Must have just been some extra smoke. This constitutes for $121 billion in losses. 90% of these are related to a creosote buildup. 60% of them, keep that in mind, are during winter. Like I said, Rachel Ray's was middle of the summer. But fire is not the biggest threat, like we talked about. We think of brick as strong and durable, something that's everlasting, that can be there for hundreds of years. I work in New England. Yesterday, I looked at a house. It was one giant chimney. The thing was 8 foot wide by 8 foot wide, had 6 fireplaces and a boiler in it. So 7 flues. The thing was built in 1740. It's still the original chimney. So that's the idea that we get. Even I will fall victim to, oh, it's brick. It's probably in pretty good condition. And it's not until you inspect it that you realize that brick has issues. However, chimneys are literal sponges. Each brick on a chimney holds roughly 1.5 cups of water. That's a very important number. Because when you look at this chimney, that constitutes 4,750 cups, or 300 gallons, or the Walmart family swimming pool for $2.99. When I pull up to a house and I see a chimney, one of the first things that I'm looking for as I'm getting out of the vehicle is going to be water in the chimney. So when we see it, like the one on the left, we have an obvious dry area on the lower end, wet above it. The one on the right is wet almost all the way down to the ground. Water is what, roughly 8 pounds per gallon, right? So if we've got 5,000 cups at 300 gallons in the chimney that's smaller than these ones, 300 gallons, 8 pounds a gallon, that's a lot of weight, right? So that's something that we're going to be stressing is on the foundation, the way that the chimney wants to pull away from the house, the way that the chimney will break. Saw one the other day that the chimney was buckling. Top third was leaning towards the house, and it had a cantilever effect. So as it was leaning towards the house, the middle section was pulling away from the house. So you could look in the middle of the chimney and see clear through to the street. It was interesting. Several of the things that we run into in the bottom left-hand corner, missing mortar. If they're using a water-soluble mortar like they did, it's still available. It's still a product. I don't know why people still use it. But back in the 17, 18, and early 1900s, they would use a water-soluble mortar. That just washes away. All the lime and calcium will leach completely out of it. leaving only sand. The wind comes along, blows the sand out, and then you're just left with dry stacked bricks. Top left hand, we've got a mortar crown that is completely wasted away. The one in the middle is the number one issue that we see the most. Middle and then the top right, that's what we call spalling. So a little bit about brick. When a brick is cast and fired, we get what's called the vitreous layer, which is a glazed, almost glass-like layer that is usually anywhere between, depending on the quality of the brick, a 1/16 and a 1/4 of an inch thick. Once you get beyond that, it is completely soft on the inside, and you can usually take a fingernail and pick it apart. So that vitreous layer on the outside of the brick is the natural waterproofing that is provided in that glazing process as it's fired. Once there's a chink in the armor and the moisture gets in, freezes, expands, and begins to blow that vitreous layer off, that's what causes what we call spalling in the industry, and that's the degradation and decomposition of the brick. And what's really fun is when it happens just around the bottom of the chimney and the top looks great, and then you've got to bring a customer out and tell them they got to rip the whole thing down because their sprinkler system's been spraying on the bottom of the chimney and eroded it out. Even metal chimneys, it'll cause rust, degradation, pitting. If you're using two dissimilar metals, like a galvanized chase cover on top with a stainless steel pipe, the dissimilar metals with the addition of water, sunlight, air can cause it to accelerate oxidation and rust out even faster than it normally would. But chimneys are treated like they're separate from the home, right? Most people look at a chimney and they think, ooh, gross, don't come near me. When technically they are part of the home. They're built onto the home, right up next to it. As the home shifts and moves with the foundation, you need to be thinking about the way that that is affecting the chimney sitting on its own foundation as well. Chimneys can also lead to damage within the home if they're improperly built or failing. Leaking, mold, mildew, staining. Without inspections, water is the silent killer to chimneys and by extension the silent killer to the house. And chimneys are one of the number one areas for water to be coming in. There are many more reasons to inspect a chimney than just a chimney fire. And this is the only place that you're going to find the requirements of a chimney inspection. The NFPA 211. Like I said, this is our standard of care. There is a difference between a standard of code, regulations, whatnot. The code is going to be your IRC, right? That's your International Residential Code. That code tells you how to build one new from the ground up. The NFPA 211 is, okay, it's built, now how do I take care of it? It's the user manual, if you will, for the chimney and fireplace. A lot of people like to say, well, we're not an NFPA state. It's like, okay, let's take a quick look at that. This map is detailing what version of the NFPA your state follows. What year, what release. I would highly suggest that you guys take a quick picture of this with your phone. This is going to be the governance of the NFPA in whatever state that you're from. This is current. I think we just did this 2 or 3 months ago. Yes, sir.
The states have adopted the 211?
Yep. Every state.
Except the white ones?
No, the white ones are, what is that? 2010. So Maine, Vermont, was that Nebraska? Those are 2010. Those are just the lighter ones. But then you get, let's see here, Colorado would be the 2019. I know that New Hampshire and Texas are the 2024.
So that's the version of the?
Yep, that's the version. That is the release. So when you go to reference it, there are things that are now in the 2024 version that if your state didn't go from 2019 to 2024, that the verbiage specifically on inspections has changed. What's required, what chimneys you have to inspect, and then what tools you have to use to inspect them has changed from 2019 to 2024. The CSIA? Yes. It was kind of a center point in the U.S. where it was easy enough for everyone to get airfare to. And there's nothing in Plainfield, Indiana, so land was cheap. So capitalism, baby. If you inspect a chimney and something goes wrong, like I said, this is the book that they're going to throw at you. Now, one of the reasons I wanted you to take that picture of the map to know what part of the or what release of the NFPA your state follows, if this is the first time that this book has ever been blue, if you go to talking with somebody and they pull out a blue version of the NFPA 211 or the 2024 version of it, then you need to pull out your map and show them that your state only follows whatever, right? So that is very important to make sure that when you're inspecting a chimney, or if you're doing a referral to somebody, that they're following the correct version of the NFPA 211. You can always go above and beyond, but do not get caught going less than. So if you decide to adopt everything up to 2019 and they want to throw the 2024 at you, but you're in Vermont or Maine and it only requires the 2010, you have to make sure to let them know that. Building, like I said, building codes only explain how to build a chimney, but not how to inspect it. There is only one state in the nation, and that is Wisconsin, that does not follow the IRC. And usually when a new version comes out within 5 years, all states have rolled over to that new version of the IRC. I don't know how many of you guys have a copy of the IRC on your desk. I do because I'm a huge dork. That thing is that thick. I highly suggest putting the PDF on an iPad because the PDF is searchable. So if there's specific context that you're looking for, that's part of our certification process is teaching us how to navigate the IRC. And so they teach us how to type into the search bar and query for the answer that we're looking for. So that's huge. If anyone would like a copy of the NFPA 211 and you don't currently have it, that is the QR code for it. If you want to grab it, I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And you can order the hard copy or you can get the PDF. Excellent. Chapter 15. Paragraph 1, general inspections shall be conducted by a qualified agency. I want everybody to raise your right hand real quick. Everybody raise your right hand. There you go. You guys do all right. Now I want you to say out loud, I am a qualified agency. Congratulations, you're now chimney guys. That's all that the U.S. federal government requires is that you just state out loud that you're a qualified agency. It does not require certifications. That's great, isn't it? By the power invested in me, by nobody cares. Exactly. I like doing that with homeowners. I get a real big kick out of homeowners. They're like, okay. Chapter 3, paragraph 3, verse 112. Qualified agency, any individual, firm, corporation, or company that is either in person or through a representative is engaged in and is responsible for the connection, venting, installation, inspection, repair, or servicing of heat-producing appliances and who is experienced in such work, is familiar with all precautions required, and has complied with all requirements of the AHJ. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the term AHJ, right? The authority having jerk? Yeah, okay. Chapter 14, chapter 2, section 14, chapter 2, annual inspection. Chimneys, that's supposed to say fireplaces, I'm going to have to give him heck for that, and vents shall be inspected at least once a year in accordance with the requirements of section 15.2. Exception, type B and type BW gas vented systems. So that's your basic water heater. Some gas burning furnaces, I know here in Texas, a lot of them are vented using B or BW pipe. It didn't click. There it goes. 14.2.1, cleaning and maintenance repairs shall be done if necessary. That's that first question that I asked, is how often should they be cleaned? Cleaned, repaired, maintenance only if necessary. Yes, sir.
Quick question on annual inspection.
Okay.
A lot of times when you tell people this, well, we don't use it. And the response to that, I guess, would be, well, it still experiences weather, right?
Right. Have you ever heard the phrase that a house not lived in dies twice as fast? Same thing with a chimney, but it's even more so with a chimney. You could lock a house up like a lake cabin or something and leave for a few years and come back. The house is usually going to be in okay order. The chimney is going to be in a lot worse order. One of the big reasons for that, and I kind of get into it here in a little bit, is those cold, wet, freeze-thaw cycle winter months. If you have a brick and mortar chimney, the thing you should be doing, not to put money in my own pocket, is you should be using it. And that's because you are heating it and drying it during the months when it's going to be getting wet, cold, freezing, expanding, and blowing the brick and mortar apart. That is its dry cycle. When it's 119 degrees outside in Grand Prairie, Texas, and it just rained yesterday, and now the sun's out, it's got its drying cycle, that's fine. But when we come up here in about the next 2.5 months, and it rains, and then overnight dips down to like 29 degrees, that can blow that chimney apart. But if you're keeping that chimney warmed and dried throughout that process, you're extending the life of that chimney. So when you're talking to someone about an inspection and they say, even if it's a new sale, right? You're brought in to do that Trek inspection on the front end. You say, okay, we want to refer X company to do the chimney inspection, or for an additional charge, we also offer chimney inspections, and they say, we're not going to use it. You need to let them know that an unused chimney is a bigger danger to the home than some other things, right? That chimney inspection is going to save them a lot of heartache in the future. By looking at it properly, you can save them water leaks, you can save them foundation issues, you can save costly masonry repairs in the future. That because you can find the smaller issues now, and it's easy to fix when it's small, as opposed to they ignore it for 15 years and then decide to use it, and then they get a $30,000 bill. There are 3 levels of inspection: level 1, level 2, and level 3. And I'm not going to lie, this gets a bit tedious in this part, so I'm going to kind of give you the breakdown the way that I give it to homeowners. Level 1, I've got a cough. I go to see my general practitioner. He comes in, he kind of looks me over, he takes my temperature, whatnot. He can either prescribe me something to fix it, or he says, you know what, we need some imaging. Imaging is level 2. He sends me to the MRI, the X-ray, the CAT scan, the whatever. That's our camera that we send up into the chimney. That's us getting into the attic and the crawl spaces, taking pictures of it. The MRI comes back inconclusive. They know something's wrong, but they can't see it on the imaging equipment. And they say, okay, we need to dig a little deeper. Let's do some exploratory surgery. And when we crack you open, we start taking bricks off of the chimney. We drill a hole in the chimney and send a borescope in it. We take a whole section of walled, sheetrock off of a wall. That's our exploratory surgery. That's our level 3. So now let's get into the fun part. Inspection of existing chimneys. The scope of the inspection, the areas of the chimney examined, and the degree of invasiveness of the inspection shall be appropriate for the conditions giving rise to the inspection. An annual follow-up inspection, once a good baseline has been taken, can always be a level 1. I'm a firm believer in there should be no such thing as a level 1. If you're gonna do a level 1, then just don't even charge them, just take a couple of pictures and high-five them and just say you're good and bounce. A level 2 should always be the absolute minimum, because if they didn't use it, again, there can be issues. I've seen cracks in flue tiles in a chimney that had never been used before, and that was because of a freeze-thaw cycle. If the house is being sold, it's a level 2. If there was a storm that came through, it's a level 2. If there's a chimney fire, it's a level 2. In every instance other than after a baseline has been set, it's always going to be a level 2, other than if there was a fire within the walls of the home, you know that the chimney maybe was not built correctly, and you need to inspect to figure out how to fix that, then it advances to a level 3 inspection. Partial examination of the chimney at a higher level shall not require that the entire inspection be conducted at that higher level. So if I'm looking at a chimney and I know that there's an issue within the smoke chamber along the back side, I don't need to tear the whole chimney down to look at the smoke chamber. For me, that's as easy as drill a hole in it, put a bore scope in it, look around. You get the little bore scopes that kind of look around for you. Navigate that situation, confirm, are you correct? Or are you incorrect on your theory of what's going on? If you're correct, then you can start opening stuff up wider. So a level 3 could be as small as just, a half-inch hole in some brick and mortar or sheetrock. You don't necessarily have to bring out all of the heavy equipment and start tearing stuff apart. And you don't have to do it for the whole chimney. This is getting into the scope, and I can't read that from there because I'm already supposed to be wearing reading glasses. So level 1, level 2, level 3, this is the scope, degree of access, circumstances, and indication. Oh, thank you. I don't know if you changed that, but that's awesome. All right, level 1, readily accessible areas of the chimney and structure. Two different phrases for you guys real quick. There's accessible, and then there's readily accessible. Now, I can get up on top of a roof. That's accessible. I carry a 32-foot ladder with me every day. I yank the thing off, extend it up, throw it against the roof, and I run up. That's accessible. The roof is not readily accessible because I can't step right off and onto the roof. In some cases, you'll have that balcony that's on the second tier and the roof line comes down to it, and you can step off onto that roof. That becomes readily accessible. So in a level 1, if you're conducting a level 1 and something truly is readily accessible where you can walk right up to it, I highly suggest you inspect it. Level 2 is anything that is accessible. And this is when we start using our video scanning equipment. This is when we send a camera up into the smoke chamber, up into the flue system. We get into the attic, got to pull the little A-frame out and get up through the scuttle hole, or maybe go down into a basement or a crawl space. This is those times when we start to get into that. And then level 3, like I said, is when we start to break it open. Oops, too far. All right. In our experience, what we've seen in the past, and he doesn't cover it exactly the way that I usually say it, I say that a home inspector will usually ask 5 questions. Does it have gas, yes or no? If so, does it work, yes or no? Does it have a damper, yes or no? If so, does it work, yes or no? And does it have a chimney cap, yes or no? And in most of the home inspection reports that I've seen from homeowners, when I give them my inspection report, that's usually the 5 questions asked, right? I will say, I've got my Trek inspection from the guy that I hired because I was told that he did a really good inspection. I ended up having a second company come in that someone else referred to me. His inspection was 12 pages long. My standard chimney inspection report just for the chimney by itself is usually 19 pages. I do on average 150 to 200 pictures just of the chimney. So, because we're responsible for lighting fire in people's homes. If you see one, what is it, a Northern Electric panel? Is that what it was? What's the outlawed electric panel? Federal Pacific, that is, yeah. I saw one of those in New Hampshire the other day. I about flipped my lid. I told the lady, I was like, you need to get this, blah, 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 blah. She's like, live free or die, baby. I was like, okay. So, yeah. So always make sure that if we're gonna do some kind of an inspection on the chimney, even if you're gonna state that your inspection doesn't replace something that a qualified individual would do, there's a few guidelines that you can follow in the NFPA 211 that are gonna give you the basic outline of a level 1. It's 33 items, and we'll get into that here in just a minute, but it doesn't take that long. I can do a level 1 in about 6 minutes. So it really does not take that long to hit those 33 items. Most times we hear it needs a sweep and a cap. So when they call us, we say, hey, we need to come out and do an inspection of your chimney. And they say, we don't need an inspection, we just need it swept, we need a cap on it. Home inspector already came out. So your report in your industry carries a lot of weight on what my industry has the ability to do, and I am the bad news bandit. I'm in the bad news business. I come in right behind home inspectors daily. Daily. We bought the house 2 weeks ago, okay? Here's a $40,000 repair estimate. Daily, I do that. So your report carries a lot of weight. If you're going to say, hey, here's recommendations on your chimney, make sure that your recommendations are 100% accurate or start referring them off. That would be my number one request. It's not a demand, it's just a request. Because when they hire a home inspector, my home inspection, the first one that I did was $650, the second one was $900. So I spent $1,500. I expect to at least have somebody that's looking at it that is qualified for what they're doing. I can't imagine the folks that are coming into it buying these big multi-million-dollar homes, and you guys spend like a day and a half inspecting these things. That's insane. After our inspection, we go over the findings with the homeowner, and we get the exact same response. Why didn't the home inspector find this during their inspection? So let's take a quick look at a starter home. And I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a tiny little chimney at the very top, and then there's one off to the right-hand side. So this is one that John Caesar, the chairman of the board of trustees for the CSIA, went out and inspected 2 or 3 years ago. And the homeowner said that they had just bought the house. Can you come out and inspect our chimneys? He says, the previous homeowner had them swept before we bought it. So there's your 2 chimneys. He was told that there was 2 chimneys with 2 appliances, a wood stove in the basement, and a masonry fireplace in the living room. First impressions from the ground is that there's some discoloration, there's cracks, and then right down there at the ash clean out, boop, there's no clean out door. Somebody stuffed a rag or a towel up in it. It had been completely clogged with creosote. And this was one of the readily accessible areas. No ladder or tools required to walk up and pull that rag out and see a huge pile of creosote rushing out of that thing. Cracks and gaps all over. Creosote was seeping through the cracks, and then the flashing was not sealed. The mortar crown, which is the bed of mortar at the very top, was deteriorating, and the cap had only been glued to the mortar. So in a high wind situation, that was going to come off, especially with the crown degrading the way that it is. The old wood stove in the flue had rusted pipe. The pipe was installed upside down. That's something that we look for. Quick thing, because he didn't put it in here. The male end of the pipe always goes down. When you think of airflow, that sounds backwards, because you would think as the heat's traveling up with all the flue gases, it's going to get caught in the lip. That's perfectly fine. You get a little bit of creosote in there, that'll block that up. But what we don't want is in the case of stage 3 creosote where it drips back down into the system. If the male end is pointing up it'll run out and along the pipe, and then you get a highly flammable liquid running along the side of their wood stove that can catch the stuff in the living room on fire. So the male, yep, say what? Solid fuel burning appliances. So wood, pellet, corn, coal, anything like that. If it's gas or oil, male end goes up. Slight smoke staining on the brick around it, and multiple clearance issues right around the stove. One chimney down, and they need a rebuild, tile removal, a brand new liner, new flashing, and new stovepipe. That's just on the first one. The second one in the basement is a traditional, this one is the one in the basement, and is a masonry fireplace. It looks like it's in good shape. It was recently cleaned. Looks like all the clearances have been met. All the measurements were good. The hearth extension is the correct size. That's the bit of brick coming out along the front of it. But when you look closer, there's heavy smoke staining with regular use. That kind of happens, but the efflorescent staining, the little white streaks kind of coming down in the middle, that's that lime and calcium that's being washed out of the mortar that's coming down and inside of the fireplace. So we know there's a water issue. And deteriorated and missing mortar joints within the firebox. So if there is a crack or gap, something that you run into in the chimney industry, 1/16 of an inch is the magic number. And you run into it over and over and over. Mortar joints are supposed to be a 1/16 of an inch. When you install refractory panels into a factory-built fireplace, they have to have gaps of a 1/16 of an inch. If you see a crack or missing mortar that is a 1/16 of an inch wide and more than a 1/16 of an inch deep, then that whole joint needs to be repaired. The damper handle was broken. It had been snapped, and it's made of cast iron, and it's heavily rusted. Once we pulled the damper out, we looked up into the smoke chamber, and we saw that it was not parged smooth. Now, parged is something that a lot of people they've never heard that word before. Parging is when you apply a coating of mortar over a corbelled face, corbelled being the step outs, to make it a nice smooth slope. So because we can see the step outs and it's not made into a nice smooth slope, that's a bad thing. And then it looks like there's something wrong with the flue. The actual flue system up in there. When we get a little closer look, we can see that the misaligned tiles, they're all shifting from one another. There's a couple of them that look to be broken. The mortar joints are sliding out from in between the actual individual tiles. And there's some loose bricks at the top. As soon as they walked through the door around to the back side of the fireplace, there's a high-efficiency boiler in it. Homeowner didn't even realize that that's where the boiler was venting to. There's cracks in the wall. The boiler pipe is only 4 inches, but it's plugged into an 8-inch thimble, which means that you would automatically think that it is twice the capacity. It's not. When you take and you're measuring surface area between 4 and 8 inches is an extremely steep gradient. 8 inches is 72.54 cross-sectional inches, surface area of that circle, and 4 is going to be roughly 13, right about. So that is a massive, massive step up in flue sizing. The masonry is failing around the pipe. When we got there, we were probably the first ones to ever take that off because people just keep smearing mortar over it to try and close it up. They don't realize that the oil is what's eating the masonry away from it. And then we went onto the roof. And remember, this is a regularly used fireplace and a high-efficiency boiler running through the chimney. This is a fireplace that they use. And up north, boilers are what heats their water and it heats their floor vents. And so this is what provides heat to their home during long, cold winter months. They had pavers closing off the top of it because at some point somebody had a raccoon or a squirrel or a chipmunk or a bird or something get down into it, or they were getting a lot of rain into it and they wanted to keep it out, so they figured if they put paving blocks up there, they could keep that from happening. Both of the flues had been completely capped off, and the pooling boiler gases had eroded the crown and top mortar joints of the chimney that were trying to escape. So in the south, we don't run into it so much. It's been a learning curve for me up north. Boilers burn number 2 waste oil, which is the same thing that they run big ships on. And it's a mixture of waste oil, crude leftover petroleum product from making gasoline, and diesel. And they blend it all together. And it has sulfur as an additive. When you get all of that lovely stuff mixed together and you throw some heat and some moisture at it, it'll create a sulfuric acid, and it eats the chimney from the inside out. So with those paving stones sitting on top, that chimney has been eaten from the inside out. And that's why we're seeing that the mortar crown is almost completely paper thin, because instead of venting straight up, now it's venting off to the sides. The one on the right is the one that the boiler was venting into, and you can see how much lower that's been worn away. As that is capped off, it will eat holes through the side of the chimney to try and find a way to escape. Those gases want to get out, and it will eat a hole through the side of the chimney to try and escape. The flashing was eroded and pulling away. Looks like it's got several layers of caulk on it. And the second chimney needed a complete rebuild, tile removal, a whole new liner for the boiler, a whole new liner for the fireplace, smoke chamber parging, new flashing, and a new chimney cap. Now, this was 4 years ago. This is 2020 pricing. They got a total bill for $20,000, and they had been in the house a few weeks. When the homeowner was told, they were standing in the basement right in front of the fireplace, and the homeowner sat down on the hearth extension and put his head in his hands and started crying. To make it even worse, his 3 little daughters came up, climbed in his lap, and asked what was wrong. And then he looked at John and said, through the tears in his eyes, he said, "Why wasn't this caught in the home inspection?" What John likes to tell that story about is the next thing that we're not allowed to tell our customers for obvious reasons, is that chimney went right past 2 bedrooms, 2 of his little girls. The chimney went in between their 2 bedrooms, and it had been venting sideways there too. So we got permission to use the outside pictures and a couple pictures of the fireplace, but he wouldn't let us take pictures of what we did on the inside because it had already burned some of the wood, some of the studs inside of the house. Yeah, so the backdrafting was the picture of where it was eating the mortar away from around the pipe. Because it couldn't escape out the top, it's going to find a way out. So it starts to bore holes through the chimney at any point that's weak. And just that plugged mortar around the pipe, it was eating through there as well. So something that I had a conversation with earlier in the slides, there was Jim Brewer that was teaching the gas class. He's an extremely intelligent gentleman, and he knows way more about chimneys than I ever will. It doesn't matter how long I do this. He was one of the founding guys of the CSIA. He was around in the 70s when the chimney movement kind of hit it big, and chimney sweeps started becoming really, really popular because of the fuel crisis. People wanted to burn wood, and if you're burning wood, then you need a chimney sweep. So he was right there at the beginning when chimney sweeps started to take off. And I asked him about carbon monoxide leaking into the home. And we were eating, and he said, "Let's finish our sandwiches, and then we'll go find a quiet space and we'll sit down and talk." And he spent the next 2.5 hours talking with me about carbon monoxide and how it affects the home and everything else. So when you're talking about gases venting into the home, you have to know their absolute gravity value, and it's all based on a gravity value of 1. 1 being the gravity of the ambient air. And carbon monoxide has a gravity value of 0.97. And so it doesn't matter where you put the carbon monoxide detector. Some people say put it down, some people say put it up. It doesn't matter. It's all about the change of air coming in and out. So even though they have a carbon monoxide detector and they say, well, it's never gone off, That's probably because they're coming in and out of the house. They might have a drafty house. They have a fireplace with the damper that's wide open. Something's allowing the air to exchange that's keeping it from tripping off. So that kind of references your backdrafting question. You're not always going to know that there's an issue unless you get somebody to look at it and say, holy cow, there's an issue. Chimneys aren't just responsible for allowing fires in people's living rooms, but also for ensuring toxic gases can safely flow past all of the bedrooms. Unfortunately, we see this every day, and these are some of the pictures that I've taken over the last several weeks. Misaligned flue systems, cracked, crumbling. The one in the top right-hand corner is a decomposed flue tile. This is something where oil has just been blasting and blasting and blasting at this house nonstop for a bajillion and a half years, and those flue tiles have just crumbled. The ones where the two flue tiles are offset, all of that mortar has been completely eaten away from inside those flue tiles. And as the tiles heat up and expand and contract, they kind of walk away from one another, and that causes them to dislodge. So these flue tiles have literally walked out of their position. And it can be deadly. These are just some of the recent stories over the past decade that have come out, and they're from states all across the U.S. Block chimney blame for fatal carbon monoxide backup, boilers, everything. We're in the business of allowing fires in people's living rooms and toxic gases to flow past their bedrooms. Level 1 inspections. A level 1 inspection shall be utilized when verification of the suitability of the chimney or flue for continued service under the same conditions and with the same similar appliance or appliances is needed. Once we've done a proper level 2, it is fully acceptable within our industry to come along and do a level 1. You've verified that that chimney is cool. We're good, right? Nothing huge. Then we'll come back along and we'll do a quick level 1. We'll look at it. If we see evidence of a flue fire, we flip it to a level 2 instantly. So, like I said, though, I'm not a huge proponent of level 1s myself. This is the nothing has changed inspection. During an annual inspection, in accordance with Chapter 14, or with Chapter 14, Paragraph 2, and then during a routine cleaning or flue of within the chimney. Circumstances. At the time of replacement of one or more connected appliances with an equal number of appliances of similar type, input rating and efficiency. So if there's a wood stove inserted into a fireplace and you're going to pull that wood stove out and put another wood stove in, inspect it. Level 1 inspections shall include examination of readily accessible, there's that term again, portions of the chimney and accessible portions of the connected appliance and chimney connection. So that's very important. They understand the chimney's on the roof, and there's a lot of people that don't get on roofs. I don't know how many of you have worked with insurance agents here lately, but they will hire a completely third-party company to come in and do the roof work because the insurance company doesn't want to pay for the insurance cost of insuring their own people to get on the roof for an insurance claim on their insured's house. Did I say insurance enough? No? Okay. So, readily accessible for the chimney and accessible for the appliance. You're right in front of the appliance. The appliance is a fireplace. The appliance is a stove. The appliance is a boiler, a furnace. Whatever connects to the chimney, that is the appliance. That's always going to be readily accessible. It's going to be in the room that it is in, right? You don't necessarily need to pull out a ladder to get to it. Readily accessible areas of the chimney or flue that can be observed through existing openings, such as a thimble clean-out opening, or flue termination shall be examined for the presence of continuous flue liner, proper installation, and no damage or deterioration. Right. So through existing openings. So you can observe it through existing openings, which could be, if If we're doing a basic level 1 on, let's say, a boiler, we'll pull the boiler pipe off, and then we'll use our cell phone, take a picture looking straight up, and then that'll kind of give us a basic idea of what we're looking at. If I put my phone in there and I just take a quick picture and I look at it, and everything looks pretty decent, and this is something that we've inspected before in the past, and I really don't see any change between what we did then and what we're looking at now, that's a level 1.
Do you have to do the level 2 prior to that?
As a good baseline, we always suggest starting with a level 2.
My question would be that can you do a level 1 only if your company did the level 2?
No. Most of the time, if someone has a proper, they'll give you, most industry professionals at this point have moved on to full reporting systems. And so when they do a level 2, they give you all of the pictures of everything. You're going to have a basic idea. And we had one, I want to say in May. A lady called us out. She's like, I just want an annual cleaning. She was a referral from another chimney company. And the gentleman that had been servicing her chimney for 40 years had passed away of lung cancer. And so his wife was just answering the call, say, call Caesar's Chimney, call Caesar's Chimney, call Caesar's Chimney. And so we were getting those referrals, people that he had been taken care of for 4 decades. And so we set them up, we went out, and we did a standard level 1 inspection because he was meticulous and has all of his paperwork. The following shall apply to inspections of flues. Where an inspection is conducted in accordance with section 14.2, the inspection shall include all of the flues within the chimney and connected appliances. Now, this right here is going to be a big change between the 2019 and 2024. Starting September 15th of this year, you only have to inspect the flues, that the customer has requested that you inspect. One of the big reasons that we did that, and there's a lot of contention within the industry about that, is because when you get into row houses, right? Or like myself, I live in a duplex. Before that, reading this one, if there's a center chimney and I have a fireplace and a gas furnace, and my neighbor has a fireplace and an oil boiler, if I'm calling out a chimney sweep, they're going to want to inspect all 4 flues in that one chimney. And so technically, I'm paying for him to get his chimney inspected, or I got to get him to cough up the money, but then people need to go in his house and everything else. So now it states that you only are required to inspect the flues that the customer requests. A lot of people are afraid that that's going to give a scapegoat for people that only want to inspect the one flue and not the 5 others. You know, they'll say, well, this is the one you use, so I'm just going to inspect this one. It's really meant for that row house type situation. So if you get into that where it's a duplex or a quadruplex, something like that, condominiums here in Dallas, you'll get the high-rise condos where they'll have a gas fireplace, and there might be 6 fireplaces venting into a single chimney. You don't want to have to go and tell all of your 5 brand new neighbors, you know, hey, I've been here a month. We are getting our chimneys inspected, you know? So that's really what that's meant for. So what do we inspect? The following indicates some of the items. It's a 33-point inspection. I'm not going to go over all of this. This is a lot. If you want to take a picture of it, you're more than welcome to. This is a basic level 1 inspection. We're looking at cleanliness of the venting system. We're looking that the flue is not blocked or significantly restricted or obstructed. We're looking at clearances to combustibles. We're looking to make sure that the damper operates successfully. We're doing some basic things. If you have an ash clean out, and this is something that I did not believe until I started seeing it myself. Years ago when I got into this industry, people told me, hey, just take your phone, shove it down into the ash door and take a picture up and see what you find. And I did it 2 or 3 times. I didn't find anything. Brick, mortar, a little expanded metal, rebar, more mortar. Until one day I took the picture, and it's a fireplace that was built in 1983. And I took a picture, and I was staring at a whole bunch of burned wood. because the guy that built it had put down wood as a form so he could pour his concrete base. And he never thought about how am I going to get the wood out, but now it's concreted into place. That wood travels underneath the hearth extension, and the hearth extension is usually where the wood comes there is nailed directly into the floor joists. So the wood can catch on fire under the fireplace just because you're heating the fireplace up so much, and that fire travels through the chimney, under the floor, back out to the floor joists, and then it catches on fire in a crawl space. So you've kind of got the basic idea on that one. Like I said, I'm not going to take you through all 33, but this is minimum requirements for a level 1. Generally, a level 1 within our industry consists of roughly 50 pictures, but we do pictures of like the house from the street. You know, there's a few other ones that are included that aren't technically inspection pictures, but we add them in. Level 2 inspections. Circumstances. After a building or chimney fire. Building or chimney fire. Somebody decides to deep fry their turkey on the back patio right near the fireplace, and they catch the side of the house on fire, and the whole wall's burned up. That's a structure fire. That's a building fire. That chimney by code needs to be inspected because that heat could have caused stress to the chimney that is unseen. After a weather or seismic event or other incident likely to have caused damage to the chimney, like a flue fire. Oh yeah, there's differences. This is a chimney fire. That is a house fire. Two completely different things. It's the building fire, that's the chimney fire. This is a $3 million mansion in Massachusetts built 120 years ago by a descendant of President John Quincy Adams. 2 days after Christmas in 2019, one of the 3 chimneys on the home caught fire. The building was a complete loss. Thankfully, everyone made it out alive. Yeah, chimneys look great. They'll always be there, right? So this is the Herald News talking about that. It was valued at approximately $2.9 million. Through a breach in the mortar, a 3-inch gap in the mortar, in the chimney, behind a wall. But because there was a failure within the flue system and it was not properly inspected, it wasn't caught. Just because tools aren't required doesn't mean that you shouldn't dig a little deeper. So like this wood stove right here, the actual flue liner is not connected to it properly. Didn't need a tool. All they had to do was just pick up on that pan and move it out of the way instead of just taking a picture of it, and would have caught this one. You'd be surprised what you're going to find. On the right-hand side, down towards the bottom, that is a terracotta flue tile with a hole eaten through it, and we're looking through the damper of the fireplace. So if they accidentally leave the damper open and the boiler's running, all of those flue gases are venting directly back into the home. Level 1 inspections. Just because you don't have to go in the attic doesn't mean you shouldn't. This is awesome. It's an interior door used as an attic closure. I love it. Because you don't know what you're going to find in the attic. This is another home that was built in the mid-1700s with wood supporting the brick as it stacked in. Even if the chimney looks like this from the roof up, it could look like this in the attic. So this is efflorescence, this is what we call migrating creosote, and sulfur, all on it. The sulfur is the yellow stuff, creosote's the black stuff. Efflorescence, which is the lime and calcium from the brick and mortar, is the white stuff. And then all of the charred and decomposed wood around it. Just because ladders aren't required doesn't mean that you shouldn't get on the roof. Your company's SOP can always exceed the minimum. Remember, the minimum is the minimum. Anything you can do to go above and beyond the minimum only benefits you in the long run. Just because it looks good from the ground doesn't mean that it is. This is the same chimney, that one, from the top. What you'll see right there is the wood underneath the mortar, right below that clay flue tile. They would use plywood at the top to help support the mortar again. There's another one. Chimney's not nearly tall enough. So there is a rule for that too. This is what we call the 10-3-2. A lot of people, I've heard it said 100 different ways, and it never amazes me. About every 6 months, somebody says it a different way, and I'm like, that's amazing. I've never heard it said that way. It's completely wrong, but I've never heard it said that way. So on the innermost side of the chimney, what we call the short side, because it's got that toe that kicks off of the front on the lower side of the roof. On the back side, what would be the shorter side, it shall, and anytime you're reading a code book or a standard, shall means must or die, essentially, right? Because that's how lawyers like to say that politely. Shall be at minimum 3 foot tall. And then anything within 10 feet, it has to be 2 foot taller than that. So I had one guy that got a piece of Schedule 80 PVC, and he would put it against the chimney and walk around the chimney. And if anything hit it, he knew he needed to be 2 foot taller than it. And he had a little level that was on it, so he held it level. And he would make sure that nothing was within 10 feet. Because a tape measure will dip, and you can't make sure it's level, but he'd stand right there and support it. A couple feet off that way, a couple feet off that way. Anything within 10 feet, your chimney needs to be 2 foot taller. There's a really good reason for that. Below that is what we consider to be the positive pressure zone, meaning we're building a bunch of positive pressure in that area, and it can actually cause downdrafting and push everything back down into the flue system. If we can get above everything else, we're getting into the minimum height required to reach what we call the negative pressure zone, or if you want to write down the technical term for it, we call it the suck zone, where it sucks everything out of the top of the chimney. That's highly, highly technical. So I like using weird words for stuff because it makes you remember it more. Level 2 inspection if it is dissimilar. So with this one, we took off the Home Depot glass doors from the early 90s, and they put in a stove insert. So this was going to be a level 2. This is a dissimilar appliance. Even though the fireplace is still there, and we're putting something into it, because we're putting something into it, that is a dissimilar appliance. We're putting appliance 2 into appliance 1. Again, with a dissimilar type, the one on the left is an oil boiler, the one on the right is a gas boiler, both going into the same space. They are dissimilar in type because they burn a different fuel, which means they will burn differently. That one is showing efflorescence coming out. So I can tell you just by looking at it, this area where the white is, you can kind of see it there on the right-hand side. That is where the boiler is venting into. We are creating a lot of extra moisture. That moisture is being pushed out of the chimney along that area. That's the wet side of the chimney. The efflorescence will always be there. You walk up to a chimney and you see it completely white on one side. They've got something venting into that chimney that is creating a lot of extra moisture. And I know down here in the Texas area, places like Georgia, Oklahoma, whatnot, you're like, well, we don't have boilers. It's like, that's great. Downtown Fort Worth, 45 minutes away from here, I was at a house, and they had the dryer venting into the chimney. And then I did a little bit more digging, and on the other side of the dryer was the gas water heater was venting into it. Both at the same point. Yep, same height.
So when you're standing in the street, you look at this, you say, oh, the front one is the fireplace?
The one closest to the street is going to be a fireplace or a stove or something. The one towards the back of the house, towards the peak, is going to be the boiler.
What else reading in this? Flue tile are not properly connected, the metal is not the flue defect?
It doesn't matter. If it's a steel flue liner, then it most likely wouldn't be doing this unless there was damage to the flue liner. This is going to be some kind of a masonry liner or a lack of liner that allows that moisture to be absorbed and then translated to the outside of the chimney. This is a dissimilar appliance. It was a wood-burning fireplace. They had gas run into it. It now has fiberglass. Even though the fireplace is the same, we have changed the fuel type. We have changed the UL listing of that appliance. Requires a full level 2 on the entire system. Not on the fireplace, but on the entire system. Gas logs. Everything you need to know about gas logs. Unvented gas logs, the National Fuel Gas Code, as well as gas log manufacturers. Oh yeah. Anytime that we're putting gas logs into something, it has to be installed into a code-compliant fireplace. There's actually so many regulations with gas logs. I usually tend to tell people not to go with them because gas logs, gas in general, absolute worst thing you can put into a chimney and fireplace. If it is a wood-burning appliance and it's meant to be wood-burning, it's meant for that slow rise to heat as you build the wood fire. As the fire starts to die down, that heat dips down. You throw some logs on it, the heat comes back up, fire starts to die down, and you get this nice little sine wave of heat. That chimney is expanding and contracting, and it's breathing, it's moving, it's living. When you put gas logs on a fireplace that is a full masonry fireplace, boop, all the heat, all at one time. I've seen a brand new house, they put gas logs in it, hadn't used the fireplace, they'd been in it 3 years. They were the original owners of the house. They put gas logs in it, turned it on, and they knew something was wrong. I came in, ran the camera. They had already cracked 3 flue tiles because it went from an ice-cold chimney to all the heat all at one time. New or changed conditions of service, that falls under the change of fuel type. A level 1 inspection will not be sufficient if we are making changes to the system. Not just the appliance, to the system in general. And I want to go over something real quick because it's said it like 10 times in here, and this is something that I always like pointing out to people. Is a chimney cap required by code? It is not. It is a best practice. It is not required. So it keeps the moisture out of it, which means you're extending the life of the chimney by having it, but a chimney cap is not required by code. The first guy that I ever worked with, in his inspection reports, had it baked in. The NFPA 211 7.1.5.2. A masonry chimney shall have a crown or wash and cap. And he stopped there. And so that was my Bible. I would walk into people's houses and be like, look, you don't have a cap? It says it right here, you can have a cap. And then I was sitting in a group of very wise, seasoned gentlemen, and I brought that up when they said, I wish we would make it a requirement for a cap. And I said, it is. It's 7.1.5.2. And they said, no, that's not right. And one of them pulled up his phone, went to it, and he read the rest of the paragraph for me. I was so blind trusting in what someone else had told me. I never went and researched it for myself because it seemed correct. And it was talking about below the height of the flue. It was talking about the smoke shelf. It wanted the smoke shelf to be sloped so that water wouldn't sit there. It would be pushed in and around the fireplace in the smoke chamber. It's the only time that you'll see where a cap is required, and a cap refers to a masonry cap or a wash. New or changed conditions of service, a level 1 inspection is not going to be sufficient. So anytime you make changes, just like David Bowie said, or Tupac, I guess. Scope and access. The inspection shall include examination of all areas covered in 15.3.2 for level 1 inspections. So we're not going to say a level 2, here you go. You're going to have to do the entirety of a level 1 and then do everything associated with a level 2. Without any removal or destruction, everything that is accessible and readily accessible with the use of image scanning equipment or more advanced technological viewing systems used as necessary. This is a chim scan that this gentleman is using. That thing costs $6,000. Yes, sir. Oh. New for 2024, this is what I was talking about. Limited to the flues and flue liners requested to be inspected. This is a duplex. As you can see, there's 4 flues in it. There's 2 that are going to be for fireplaces and 2 that are going to be for gas furnaces in this one. One of the customers called, wanted her inspection done. Funny enough, that homeowner saw us in the driveway and said, hey, when you're done with her, can you come over to us? So we ended up inspecting them all on that trip anyways. But if the one that had been there for a while didn't want hers inspected, all we had to do was the 2 of them. So if you're inspecting multifamily or anything like that, make sure that you can always reference this. We don't have to inspect them, but if you have neighbors that want us to inspect while we're here, fun thing, if you're inspecting mobile homes, duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, however many plexes, condominiums, apartments, anything like that where someone is buying it, there's a whole, you have to do all of these inspections, but that falls under the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they have a whole secondary inspection system that you have to do on top of that. The inspection shall include evaluation of the proper type of flue lining material and flue sizing for the type and input rating of the connected appliances. So making sure that when you're looking at it, if you have 4 fireplaces, when you go to the top of the chimney, you're seeing 4 flues. And making sure that those flues are the correct size of the fireplace that's there. Making sure that the liner is the correct size for the stove, and so on. Sizing of the flues for solid fuel burning and pellet fuel burning equipment shall be in accordance with this standard. Gas and liquid fuel as well. Okay, let's see here. Circumstances for level 2, again, to similar type. Prior to a relining, if you have a customer that knows that they need a liner, if that's part of the deal, when the customer says, hey, I need you to inspect the chimney for me, I already know it needs a liner, then you automatically know that it needs a number 2. If they've told you that a change is required, then you already know what level of inspection you're going to be looking at. Upon sale or transfer of the property, after a structure or chimney fire, weather or seismic event, or other incidents likely to have caused damage to keep the chimney from working under normal conditions. This is the 33 points of a level 2. If you want to take a picture of this one, this is not the same 33 points. This is a whole separate 33 points. So for those of you that can math, that is 66. That is, once you've done these a few times, a standard level 2 inspection, even scanning the flue, usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes for the inspection. It's the paperwork that takes the extra time. But since you guys are already used to getting into your systems and doing the paperwork and adding the pictures, it's not going to add that much time on the back end to include those pictures. Upon sale or transfer of property, buying a home is expensive. Home repairs are expensive. Chimney repairs are extremely expensive. I thought I was being really cute. The last time we had a chimney expo for Christmas, my wife had bought me a t-shirt that said, if you think hiring a chimney sweep is expensive, wait until you hire a bad one. And I wore it to the expo and everyone was like, oh, ha, 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 ha. And I wasn't really paying attention, and we went out to eat dinner that night, and we were in New England, and I got a lot of really bad looks. Realtors love to use the phrase non-functional. We don't need it inspected, it's non-functional. But we've already set the understanding that even if it's non-functional, it is still required. That house is being sold. It's being gifted, bequeathed, whatever. Somebody's buying it for somebody else. It doesn't matter. If that name on the deed is changing, it requires a level 2 inspection. Say what? Doesn't matter. Nope. Because what's the likelihood that the next people are going to come in, they're going to hear sealed, they're going to know there was an inspection, and in their mind, I've had it happen. I've inspected a chimney that was sealed, and I didn't take the lead off of the top. They take a lead sheet because you can form it around the top of it, and you do that, and that's sealed. And the homeowner thought, well, he's up there inspecting it. He'll obviously take that off. And I did. I peeled it back, and then I put it right back. And then they went to put a fire in it after I told them it wasn't ready to use, and they smoked out the house. Yes, sir.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not sure.
What's that?
So we see, in our area here, we see houses that are 100 years old, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and they've had the chimney actually taken down below the roof line because it was falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're left with the firebox that's on the ground floor, and you have this chimney that stops in the end.
Absolutely. Brick it off.
Sorry?
I would suggest bricking it off on the inside. Just filling it with brick or demoing it all the way down, one of the two. Detailing that in your inspection is huge, though.
Sorry?
Detailing that in your inspection.
In our normal home inspection,
Yeah.
take pictures of it and tell them. But
I've seen that. There was one in Irving. It was a gentleman's. The guy had bought it for his daughter to live in. They were from like South Dakota or something. She was going to go to DBU, Dallas Baptist University. She was living in Irving in this little house with her little sorority sisters, and they wanted to use the fireplace, so he called us out to inspect it, and the chimney stopped in the attic. Right? I mean, the top of the chimney, mortar crown and everything, was in the attic because at some point they went from a 4-pitch to a 10-pitch roof, and they just raised the roof above the height of the chimney.
most of the time what we're seeing is that it's deteriorated so bad, they just take it down. They don't want to repair, so they just take it down to above the chimney line. But they like the way it looks in the roof,
Mm-hmm.
because it's nice and pretty and 100 years old. So it is what it is.
Yeah,
It's just a cosmetic piece that
absolutely.
still requires level 2. So
Yep. Because what you're doing in that level 2 is you are taking the burden of liability off of yourself and putting it on the person that signs that inspection report. You're detailing every inch of that chimney and fireplace and showing them why they can't use it, and then handing it over to them and saying, would you please sign here? And then if they do decide to use it against your recommendation, all the liability is on them. It is 100%. That inspection, think of it more of as a shield, right? It's what is going to protect you. And if it's down below the roof line, then you can cut your inspection time in half. You can probably take a picture of everything you need with a cell phone, looking up through the dampers, zoom in, really bright flashlight looking up, move around in the attic, do everything you need to do, get those pictures. Yep, pull it out. In fact, yesterday, that one with the giant chimney that was 8 foot by 8 foot, the 2 upstairs fireplaces, they had the flues had collapsed in them. So at some point, somebody shoved insulation in it. And me being me, I didn't think anything about it. I just reached up there and I grabbed the insulation, and I had roughly 300 pounds of dust, mortar, and brick fall. That insulation was in just a way that it was holding up the couple of brick that had hit it. And when I pulled it out, we carried out buckets and buckets and buckets. And so when it came to the other fireplace, I told him, I was like, I'm not touching that one. I was like, I've been cleaning for the last 4 hours. We're not doing that one. So, yeah, it's always inspected. I got up, we got in the attic. Luckily, somebody, when they had done it, when you went into the attic, there was a huge hole blown into the chimney. And so I was able to just peel back a piece of wood paneling. We got that off, and I could step into the chimney and just take all my pictures looking right down from the top. I didn't have to go from the bottom. So, but yeah, it was, I just knew. I was just pushing on the insulation of that second one, and I was like, this is going to be the same deal. And it was gentleman was in his 70s. His mother was nearly 100, and this was her bedroom. I was like, it's better for me not to look at this one rather than risk her getting some kind of an infection in her lungs from all the dust that this is going to kick up. So let's do a quick inspection on this house. This is the one that we started with, and I've got just about a half hour left, it says. But I think it only gave me 90 minutes. I didn't think it gave me the full 2 hours. Yeah, we got about a half hour left. So let's do an inspection of this home that has 2 non-functional fireplaces. We're just going to put candles in it. By the way, number 1, no candles. Even at your own homes, do not put candles in a fireplace. I don't know, when you were younger, anybody ever show you that you can blow a candle out and as the smoke rises, you light it and it goes back down? That's not smoke. That is steam and fuel. Candles are about 15% efficient, which means the other 85% of the wax and the fuel is going up into the flue system of your chimney, and you are now lining the chimney, fireplace, and smoke chamber with fuel. So no candles in fireplaces. If I see a chimney or fireplace that they actively burn candles in, I tell them they have to tear it down and redo it. I'm not going to touch it. Find another chimney sweep. Meanwhile, the top of the chimney looks like this. That's from the backside. That's what you can't see from the street. A masonry chimney not being used goes back to that. We're not going to use it. That's great. Will deteriorate quickly due to the masonry not being dried out from the exhaust of the heat of the connected appliance or the fireplace. Another decorating trick is to dress it up, right? We're just going to make it look cute. But when you look up, we've just kind of covered it up, and I think that was a Frisbee that was shoved into that one and then a bunch of duct tape put over it. And then when we open that up, we can see broken flue tiles, unparched smoke chamber. There's yellow that's soaking in through it, so I know there's also a boiler in that chimney. So how I can see the step out in the bricks. So when you corbel, you're coming off of a flat face, one brick, another brick, and you're creating an upside down staircase, right? That's corbelling. Parging smooths and slicks that over so that it's nice and smooth. So, well, what's that? It's a boiler, right? We went from this to that, and that looks like it's got a brick resting in it, and that's the boiler. On the back side of the fireplace. They decommissioned the fireplace to use the flue system, but then this would be your primary way to clean it. And they never said anything to anybody. So it turns out that that little broom was hiding a lot more than we initially thought. Circumstances upon sale or transfer of property. All chimneys on the house should be inspected regardless of the fuel, the connected appliance, or how often they're going to use it. Just because it's not in use now doesn't mean that the new owners won't try to use it in the future. Or to the it's sealed question that we had a while ago, that new owner comes in, they have it, they decide to go to Europe for a month. They want to do Christmas in Paris. They hire a house sitter that doesn't know any better. The house sitter comes in, lights a fire, burns the house down because it's sealed. Right? So always making sure we're doing really good full inspections, and then we're offering them some kind of an avenue, even if you're suggesting someone else for the repairs. Find a certified guy, get them in here, get it done quickly. A sealed chimney, by the way, worst thing you want. If you seal a chimney, it's still going to soak in all that moisture. It creates mold, mildew. It can cause breathing problems, everything. It gets really bad really fast. So a chimney needs to breathe. It needs to vent and push that moisture out. So let's pretend you're buying a car, and you only want to inspect the 2 driver's side tires because that's the side you sit on. Right? Well, why inspect the passenger? I don't sit on that side of the car. I don't care. So that means that, let's see here. In our experience historically, the buyer is much more interested in a full inspection. Sellers and their agents are not. That means that about half of the time, chimneys get the proper attention that it deserves. Starting in 2020, that dropped from 50% to 15% of pre-sale inspections. That's not taking into account the people that are waiving the inspections. That is taking into account just the ones that chose inspections. Of the people that got an inspection on their home prior to 2020, 50-50. After 2020, when everybody started buying those second houses or bigger houses because they thought they were going to work from home for however long, during that boom, that's when we saw it drop. Of the people getting inspections, chimney inspections dropped down to about 15 rather than 50-50. A friend, this is one of John's friends that he had, that was a local judge, called and asked him for an inspection of the fireplace. He had purchased the home 12 years before and had never used the fireplace, and it's a good thing that he hadn't, because someone had sealed the chimney, and it was not detailed in the original inspection report. So it's an entire bed of mortar closing off the entire top of the chimney. Here's another example of a real estate inspection. This is one where they said, yep, it's got a chimney cap. And those single flue caps had slipped all the way down and closed off the top of the flues. And they said, it's got a cap. Good to go. Good to use it. This was a boiler and a wood stove in this one. So the primary and secondary source of heat at this house. This chimney had been leaking so bad that the roof and insulation showed signs of moisture damage. So again, getting in the attic. Insist that a full level 2 inspection be performed on every home sale by a CSIA certified chimney sweep. Start by forming relationships with your local realtors and home inspectors and educate them on the importance of chimney maintenance and inspections. You can go to csia.org. There's a link that says find a chimney sweep. You type in the zip code of the house that you need inspected, and it will populate a list of certified chimney sweeps in your area. Level 3 inspections shall be utilized for concealed areas. If there's an area that you need to get to that you can't see with just the old Mark I eyeball, that's going to be when you start opening stuff up. Only for those areas suspected of a malfunction or damage. So if you don't suspect that there's anything going on, there's no reason to blow it open. If you think this one spot is where we've got something going on, you don't need to tear the whole thing apart. This is when we do the breaking stuff, all right? Where necessary for the investigation of a building or chimney fire. So if there is a building or chimney fire, we will start cutting walls open and brick open and everything else so that we can look on the inside of it. Where a hazard is detected or suspected and they cannot be fully evaluated from the accessible or readily accessible areas, and at other times as indicated in section 15.5. In addition to the list in A15.3 and A15.4 for level 1 and level 2 inspections. So you're still going to do the level 1, still going to do a level 2, and then you move on to a level 3. This is the 33 required for a level 3. So we're up to 99 points of inspection now. So, let's see here, where is it? It's like, oh, okay, we've done that. Here we go. There's the 17. Fire stopping, debris in the annular space. That holds a lot of people up, annular space. Annular space is the free venting cavity around the system. You have a chimney smoke chamber flue that is built, and then a chase that goes around it. The airspace in between the system and the chase is the annular space. So you can have a fire in the annular space that doesn't extend to the house, or I've seen it where there's nothing but plywood along the annular space, and they built the chase right up to the house. We're actually working on one of those right now in Manchester, where we started to tear the chimney down, and there was no brick on the house side of the chimney. It was just plywood, and it was all scorched. So, If you said you inspected a chimney and did not follow the guidelines in the NFPA 211, then you can be held liable. The liability is on you. So if you perform a chimney inspection and there's something that arises with an insurance thing, and the homeowner says, here's my home inspection, they said it was fine, didn't need to be swept, had a cap, whatever, we were good to go, and there's a chimney fire, that insurance company can come right back on you, and they will throw that NFPA 211 at you so fast, you won't even know what hit you. So make sure that if you're detailing anything about a chimney, that you're detailing everything about the chimney. Best course of action, chimney and fireplace. Firebox looks good, damper's working order, brick looks good, just needs a sweep and a cap, or none of it. Truly. If you feel like you can fit a complete level 2 chimney inspection into your standard home inspection, then we would invite you to get certified. Like I said, it's a week-long course. We bring you in, we teach you everything that you need to know about chimneys, fireplaces, vents, stoves, everything else. That way, when we release you back into the wild, you're a certified inspector. We're not going to teach you how to lay brick. We're not going to teach you how to make a chimney cap. We're not going to do any of that, but we're going to get you hands-on in front of a chimney, and we're going to teach you the proper way to inspect it. Otherwise, put language in your report that instructs a homeowner to contact a qualified chimney professional. So recommend that you call a CSIA certified chimney sweep or a fire certified inspector to complete a level 2 inspection of your chimney and appliances, and they can go to csia.org or gotofire.com to find those. So there's 4 inspection agencies in the U.S. There is the National Chimney Sweep Guild, which is still building out theirs, the NCSG. They're still building out their evaluation and certification process. I'm a certified journeyman through them. There is the fire certification, which is a week-long course that is just hyper-focused on teaching guys how to read the NFPA 211 and be the best possible inspector that you can be. It's run by a gentleman by the name of Dale Febb. He's a really cool dude. He's in California. He won't come to you. You have to go to him. Oh, darn, a week in California. The CSIA is the next best inspection certification other than fire. Fire is extremely nitpicky, detailed. If you want a really good inspection process, CSIA is that. The NFI, the National Fireplace Institute, is the 4th one. I'm a master certified hearth professional with the NFI. The NFI is more focused on the building, maintenance, and repair of those systems. So it teaches you to be a really good repair, service, install type guy. If you see something, say something. Even if you don't do a full inspection, notate what you do see and then refer it to a professional. Make sure that you advise them not to use the appliance until it has been properly inspected. If you see something and say, hey, you know what? I just took these pictures. It's a little once over. I'm just letting you know what I can see. Get someone else out here. But in the process of my inspection, I did see X, X, and X. Just let them know, hey, we need to get someone out here that has a little bit more trained to run over that inspection for you, if you don't want to do the full inspection yourself. Again, csia.org. You can go to find a chimney sweep, type in your zip code, and then you'll get a list of certified chimney sweeps. And there's actually a whole bunch of little icons that pop up that'll tell you this person trained at the Plainfield Event Center. This person attended masonry classes. This person attended master masonry classes. He's a specialist. He's a master. He's this. He's that. So that's one of the nice things about the CSIA is they tell you who you're getting and what their overall experience is in training and certifications. What we do matters. Chimneys must be inspected annually, regardless of the fuel and regardless of if they're ever going to be used. At minimum, a level 1, those first 33 points are the minimum. Truly. Like I said, you do 30, 40 level ones, you'll start to get to where you can knock a level 1 out in a few minutes. It's a tape measure, a flashlight, and a cell phone. You can usually do it, like I said, I can do one in about 6 minutes. So, and I can get somebody brand new that's never done it before, within 2 weeks, I can have them running level 1s and doing them in about 10 to 15 minutes. Every real estate transaction should be a level 2. Should. Technically, shall, but if you guys are going to do a quick once-over just to kind of get some basic information to the homeowner and let them know, hey, call somebody else to do the full service, I would suggest at least a level 1, those 33 points. Homeowners need to know this. Home inspectors, realtors, HVAC, hearth shops, fire departments. I actually teach the same class. I have a different version that I teach to fire departments that includes chimney fires and whatnot. So, if you would like more education on inspections, there is a 2-day class that we teach. This one is not full. You can actually go to the csia.org and get the most updated list. It's a 2-day comprehensive inspection class. I just taught one here in March. It's a full 2 days. We take you really deep into it. We start to show you stuff that just absolutely blow your minds. We had 2 it was 3 or 4 chimney companies and 2 home inspectors that were in that class. And then I taught one in Nashville, and it was about the same ratio. And the home inspectors were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, I never knew. It's like, yeah, exactly. It gets, some of the pictures that we show you in that one will melt your face off, truly. During the 2-day course, no. And it's just a basic inspection. So we do take you through the parts of the chimney, and we take you through some of the workings of it, but it's more in depth. We go into gas fireplaces, we go into solid fuel burning appliances, we talk about oil, we talk about the nitty-gritty getting into it, and then we also have a 1-day, 2-hour class that we teach specifically on chimney fires and extension, how it relates back to the home. So if you're doing post-fire inspections, I know some of you might be doing that also, that's a really good class for that. Anyone want to grab the link on that? That's just the csia.org. Yes, sir.
You said you're certified, there's 1,500. How many do you think are
In
in Dallas?
Dallas, the last time I looked in Dallas, now there's a company that I used to work for that still claims like 30, but I think he only has like 6 people working there. He just never removed them from the roster. Total CSIA certified guys actively working in the Dallas area is roughly, I want to say 10 to 12. 10 to 12. Yeah. So I want to say thank you for you guys having us out here today. I'll stick around for a few minutes if you guys have any questions. If you want to keep going, we can. I'll stand here and answer questions until I turn blue. Yes, sir.
You showed me the one, showed us all the one house where the guy went to the starter white ranch.
Yep.
What should the home inspector actually see?
So with that one, the home inspector, had they gone in and looked at the boiler a little closer, they would have seen how that was starting to rot out around where that boiler connection was. And then simply getting on the roof revealed 99% of the issues with that chimney. The fact that both the fireplace and the boiler were blocked off from the top. That would have been, had that never been done, there wouldn't have been nearly as much damage to that chimney. And then the other one, all he had to do was walk around the side of the house and notice that there was a blanket that was shoved into the ash pit and take that picture. And they could have referred that, hey, I need somebody else out here to look at this.
Do you ever have any situation where the builder or a home being that was built with multiple fireplaces has a problem because all the flue terminations on the top of the flue are the same height and things are sucking, like you said, the suck zone?
I have seen that, and that gets into makeup air. So new homes, there's a whole chimney physics class that gets taught that deals with that. It's the house as a system, pressure testing on the house. I have a colleague that got called out as a third-party representative. He was just not associated with anybody. Both sides, the homeowner and the builder, agreed to bring him in as that, I think, fourth or fifth opinion on what was going on with the house. They had 8 beautiful fireplaces, and they would start one, and it would kind of work. And if they started any more than that one, the whole house would fill with smoke. And they couldn't figure out why.
I've had exactly the situation, and I told them, I said, your chimney walls can't fill the same height. You're sucking air in. You end up staggering them, and actually turning them, so they went up and turned.
No. That might Band-Aid part of the problem, but it's not alleviating the full problem. What we ended up doing, what my colleague ended up doing, we as an industry did, is we installed a makeup air system that would allow fresh air to come into his home venting, so the furnace/AC. And so there's a little dial in his living room that goes from 1 to 8, depending on how many fireplaces he wants to use. And if he wants one fireplace, he turns it to 1, and that fan turns at a certain speed, and it sucks makeup air from the outside in. The problem with it most likely is the fact that the house is built too tight, and we have to overcome other mechanical draft systems. So when they go into the bathroom and they turn the light on and that fan starts running to blow all the steam out, and then somebody's doing laundry and the dryer's running, somebody's cooking dinner and the vent hood's going. These are all mechanical draft that's sucking the air out of the house. And so because of that, your fireplace, which is a natural draft, is never going to work. So most of the time, what we will end up doing is if it's a factory-built fireplace, there is an option for a combustion air kit, an outside air kit, and it's essentially a dryer hose, and there's a knockout on the side of the fireplace. You knock it out, it installs, and then that vents directly to the outside, and it looks kind of like a dryer vent on the outside. And what that does is it's responsible for sucking 100% of the combustion air required through that vent to allow the fireplace to operate naturally. Yes, sir. Very fun. You see the CSIA logo in the middle? There's 2 different brands of sweep logs out there that have that logo on them. And when the CSIA was first getting started and they needed money, they went to the sweep log companies and said, hey, we'll let you put our logo on it, and then you pay us money. And that's kind of how they funded some of the stuff that they were doing years ago. The requirement was in very tiny print on the bottom. It says, this log does not replace a cleaning by a certified professional. Not qualified, but certified. So the sweep logs, what they tend to do is to convert the fuel into an inert state that keeps it from being as combustible as it was, or they will burn hot enough that they burn it all out. And the burning it all out is the part that you're technically not supposed to do, because you're saying, yeah, I want to clean, and I will tell you, as an industry professional, I tell homeowners all day long, I was like, if you want to clean it out, the best way to do it is to burn it out. It's like, that's very dangerous though, but it is correct. If you can burn all the fuel out of it, it's not going to catch again. But we have chemical peels and processes that we use to get it out without the danger of burning the house down. You're very welcome.
Very good, thank you.
Absolutely. No, you're good. Oh, I can talk to you for hours on that. So what you do is you measure the width of the opening of the fireplace, right? And then you measure the height of the opening of the fireplace. You multiply those 2 numbers together. Depending on the type of liner you're going to put in, usually we use a round liner. You're going to divide that number by 12. Round is by 12, square is by 10. A rectangle that is greater than a 2-to-1 ratio is by 8. And so if it's a round liner and you're at like 36 by 27, you multiply those two, divide it by 12, and that tells you what size liner. That tells you the minimum surface area of the liner that you need, which 36 by 27, it's going to be pi times the radius squared. So on an 8-inch liner, it would be 4 times 4 times 3.14, which would be roughly right at 78.
When you're looking at a standard firebox, you better have what, 12-inch flue, basically square, right?
It depends. So here in Dallas, I see a lot of 13-13s, I see a lot of 18-18s, and I see a lot of 13-18s. But when you go into New England, they're 6.5 by 11, 7 by 10s, 10 by 10s.
New England was also, houses there.
Oh, this is new houses built 15 years ago. They're still doing it that way. So, yeah.
Let's have a nice round of applause for Cody Woodward.
Thank you.